Our collective history has changed over the millennia. As humanity has experienced shifts in consciousness and understanding, like the metaphorical precession of the equinoxes, stories and historical accounts have been altered, mistranslated, and deeply misunderstood. Modern historical perspectives account for many events, but they often overlook or dismiss important elements that don't fit paradigms. A prime example is the mystery of the Giza pyramids. No modern theory can explain how these massive structures were built. Even a large group of men could not drag many tons of stone blocks hundreds of miles and stack them with such precision to 450 feet, a feat that challenges modern technology. Their precise alignment with celestial bodies like Orion's belt, their embodiment of sacred geometrical principles like the golden mean and Fibonacci spiral, and their role as a global nodal point for sacred sites all suggest a level of knowledge and capability that defies historical explanations. This is one example of many that suggest our history may be incomplete or misinterpreted. On closer inspection, many facts may be false. One of the biggest intellectual projects of our time is this reevaluation of our past. Recent archaeological discoveries have shaken our historical understanding. Babylon, Uruk, and Akkad, once known only from biblical and other ancient texts and often considered mythical, have been found. Many cities were discovered, and archaeologists found thousands of cylindrical clay tablets in them. These cuneiform tablets recount Earth's history and the origins of humanity over hundreds of thousands of years. One might immediately dismiss these accounts as mythology, primitive attempts by ancient peoples to explain their origins. This dismissal is problematic when these texts sometimes display advanced knowledge that ancient civilizations could not have had. Sumerian records and Dogon oral traditions describe distant planets in our solar system in detail. Sumerians understood the precession of the equinoxes, a complex astronomical phenomenon that requires over 2,000 years of precise observation to detect the Earth's axial wobble. This information appears to have been present from the start of their civilization. Numerous scholars, including Zecharia Sitchin, have dedicated extensive effort to transcribing and interpreting these cuneiform texts, often arriving at remarkably similar interpretations of the overarching narrative. Thematically, other esoteric sources like Thoth's accounts and channeled materials support these interpretations. These diverse records and sources tell a strikingly coherent story when examined together. This grand narrative spans hundreds of thousands of years and includes cosmic events involving celestial bodies like Tiamat and Nibiru, Nephilim, the genetic seeding or modification of the human race, Adam and Eve, and ancient, advanced civilizations like Lemuria and Atlantis. The early parts of this epic about planetary origins and humanity's birth are fascinating, but this exploration will cover Lemuria's later stages, Atlantis's rise and fall, and the present. This information combines insights from ancient records with details from Thoth material, encouraging people to use their own discernment and experience rather than accepting it as absolute, unverified fact. Humans once had a much higher consciousness than they do now. These early humans were interdimensional and psychically advanced. Like many animal species, humans communicated through thought and emotion, making spoken or written language primitive. The Lemurians lived on a large archipelago. Human consciousness increased, and Lemuria submerged beneath the oceans. Atlantis emerged after Lemuria sank. During the early 20th century, spiritual exploration was similar to today's, and Lemuria and Atlantis were popular. Coral formations were evidence of Lemuria. Coral can only survive 150 feet underwater. Coral rings at 1,800 feet deep were found far from Easter Island in 1910. This implied that the ocean floor there was much higher and sank slowly to allow such formations. More intriguingly, Hawaii to Easter Island had the same trees, insects, and bacteria. Some esoteric traditions suggest that closer land bridges ran along the western shores of Lemuria, explaining this vast geographical spread of identical species. World War I shifted global focus, and spiritual and historical inquiries waned for a while. After Lemuria and Atlantis collapsed, humans were scattered across islands and continents without a homeland. The Nanakals, a group of about 1,000 highly conscious humans, lived during this time. The Nanakals prepared Atlantis as humanity's new home. They projected their consciousness and energies across the continent in the shape of the Tree of Life, but with 12 spheres, Sephiroth, instead of 10, including one on the island of Udal, the brain of Atlantis, and one submerged in water. Although hundreds of miles long, the 10 mainland spheres were projected with atomic precision. Atlantis became the new center because of Earth's Kundalini. The Earth, like humans, has a Kundalini, an energy serpent that energizes the chakras when activated. Residents of areas where this planetary Kundalini runs from Earth's center to a surface point tend to become global spiritual leaders. After Lemuria, Earth's Kundalini reached Atlantis. The profound spiritual leadership of Tibetan traditions for 13,000 years is due to its later move to the Tibetan mountains. Drunvalo Melchizedek's The Serpent of Light describes its recent shift. Powerful energy vortexes spun out of each circle as the Knuckles breathed life into Atlantis's Tree of Life pattern in one day. Once these vortexes were established, millions of Lemurians from around the world were psychically drawn to Atlantis. The Lemurian collective consciousness was right-brained, like a 12-year-old girl, and had only mastered 8 of the 10 prime energy centers or vortexes on the Atlantean mainland. Lemurians settled and built cities in one of these 8 centers based on their energy. 2 major vortexes were empty. Natural vacuums are filled, and these life-pulling vortexes were no exception. Ancient Mayan records like the Troano document, now in the British Museum, estimated to be 3,500 years old, say Atlantis had 10 cities when it fell. Thoth said 2 alien races filled these vortexes. The Hebrews were the first, coming from our future, possibly from another planet. They were like a student repeating a grade, with left-brained logical knowledge but no right-brained evolving consciousness. This evolution stage needed to be repeated. They brought advanced ideas and knowledge foreign to Lemurians. This could explain sacred geometrical knowledge in Hebrew culture and change the interpretation of stories like the Exodus. Perhaps Moses was guided by an ascended master of the Hebrews to free a people who were being mistreated because they were not Earth humans. Jewish arrival did not initially cause problems. They helped human evolution. The second race caused major disruptions. They were Mars-born. Mars had oceans and trees less than 1 million years ago, according to Thoth. However, the Martians performed the Lucifer experiment. Spirit, which is free and part of the God consciousness, chose to separate itself from all consciousness and create a separate reality. This is not evil like Lucifer is often portrayed, but rather a different way of seeing reality based on duality rather than unity. A flower of life pattern is associated with Luciferian consciousness. Such experiments have always failed, causing the species to lose its love, become hypermasculine and left-brained, ruled by greed and conflict, and self-destruct. This happened on Mars. They battled until their planet's atmosphere was destroyed. Although Mars has no global magnetic field, NASA's recent findings suggest it once had one that was catastrophically lost. They built massive tetrahedral pyramids to create a synthetic Merkaba before Mars was destroyed. Anciently known as the Chariot of Ascension, the Merkaba is a star tetrahedral energy field around the body that, when activated by unity consciousness and love, allows interdimensional travel and other seemingly impossible feats. The Martians could only create a synthetic, tool-based Merkaba because they had lost unity consciousness and love. A small group of Martians used this synthetic Merkaba to escape Mars and settle on Earth 65,000 years ago. They found an unoccupied vortex on Atlantis and settled there without permission, typical of their Luciferian, separated consciousness, changing humanity's evolution. Thoth's father, Thothme, was one of the Nahkals who founded Poseidon on Udal, the brain of Atlantis, representing the Kether, crown sphere of the Tree of Life. Plato depicted Poseidon with its 3 concentric rings of black, red, and white stones, representing the Nahkals, Maya priesthood, and general population. The first few thousand Martians tried to conquer Atlantis. Despite being outnumbered by millions of Atlanteans, they were aggressive. They were subdued but not returned by the Atlanteans. Earth's planetary consciousness was like a 14-year-old girl, while Martians were ancient, hypermasculine. It was like an older, dominant man overtaking a young girl. Martians agreed to study female emotions they lacked. After a while, the Martians introduced their left brain technologies, subtly changing Atlantean consciousness to be more masculine and logical. The Martians took over and subjugated the Atlanteans, causing deep animosity that lasted until Atlantis' destruction. This forced marriage lasted a long time. Humanity's consciousness dropped 26,000 years ago as Earth approached a precessional cycle similar to ours. An Atlantis fragment the size of Rhode Island sank into the ocean. This event terrified the Atlanteans, who feared losing their continent like Lemuria. They lost their ability to predict the future due to this downward shift. This fear faded after 200 years, which, given Sumerian and biblical lifespans of around 900 years, might be equivalent to 20 years today. Between 13,000 and 16,000 years ago, a comet approached Earth. The Atlanteans, still aware of higher dimensions, predicted its arrival. Despite being a minority, the Martians wanted to destroy the comet with their laser technology. The Nodals and Atlanteans protested, believing the comet's arrival was divine appointment and should be natural. Martians gave in. The comet hit the Atlantic Ocean west of Atlantis on the ocean floor near Charleston, South Carolina. Science shows a major impact 12,000 plus years ago, and remnants are found in 4 states. Importantly, some fragments hit Atlantis directly, destroying Martian inhabited areas and killing many. Infuriated, the Martians broke with the Atlanteans and pursued their own goals. Given their control, they tried to take over Earth by building another synthetic Merkaba like on Mars. Their memory was poor after 50,000 Earth years without building one. They started the experiment on a small island west of Atlantis, now the Bermuda Triangle. The experiment failed, creating an out-of-control Merkaba that ripped lower dimensional levels open. This environmental and spiritual disaster dwarfed modern ecological crises, though they are direct effects. Spirits from lower dimensions were thrust into higher dimensions they didn't understand to find bodies. Each body received hundreds of these beings. The Neacles, who had immortality, maintaining health and youth, choosing when to die, reincarnating with full memory through tantric interdimensional practices. Thoth was a priest king for thousands of years, only recently leaving Earth after passing his knowledge to Drunvalo Melchizedek, tried to send these beings back and seal the dimensional tier. 3 overlaid star tetrahedra form the Merkaba. A living one with unity consciousness and love is stable, while a synthetic one without love is unstable. The Bermuda Triangle's out-of-control Merkaba, with its stationary tetrahedron tip sometimes protruding, still causes electromagnetic and multidimensional imbalances. Despite Nodal efforts, Atlantean society collapsed. Economic, social, and conceptual frameworks collapsed. Strange diseases made life a daily struggle for survival. Unable to cope, the Nodals prayed to cosmic consciousness for help. They were told humanity would survive falling to level 1 consciousness. Switching from female to male polarity means a new start. Importantly, humanity would only have 13,000 years to return to Christ consciousness compared to hundreds of thousands. Failure meant extinction. This unprecedented problem required extraordinary solutions. These higher powers ordered Thoth, Ra, and Araragat, former Atlantean priest kings, to perform a complicated experiment. To understand their job, consider consciousness grids. A planet's etheric, crystalline grid holds and reflects its species' collective consciousness. These grids are electromagnetic in the 3rd dimension and exist in all dimensions. Geometric, unique to each species, they emit light and give Earth a bluish glow from space. Thoth and his companions had to create a synthetic Christ consciousness grid, also called a unity consciousness grid, to help humans reach this higher state in a short time. Polar shifts are closely related to consciousness shifts, so we must understand them before building this grid. While channeling for a geologist in the 1930s, Edgar Cayce predicted a polar shift. For his connection to higher dimensions and influence on the New Age movement, Cayce was taken seriously. An investigation by geologists found strong evidence. They found different magnetic poles in Hawaii by studying lava beds. Last major shift occurred 13,000 years ago and 13,000 years before, 26,000 years ago. Scientists also found that magnetics can flip or turn 90 degrees in a day, causing the sun to rise in a new direction within 24 hours. These shifts have happened hundreds of times over the last 100 million years, but are becoming more frequent. Charles Hapgood found that Earth's crust can slip over its main mass, allowing it to rotate. The crust spins erratically before settling in a new location with new magnetics, causing massive earthquakes, tsunamis, and widespread devastation, resembling apocalyptic prophecies. Science is becoming aware of a polar shift, supporting esoteric consciousness shift predictions. It's interesting that media reports on this topic are sometimes suppressed. The weakening and warping of Earth's planetary magnetics over the last 500 years has caused many modern problems, from confused bird and whale migratory patterns to social unrest, correlating with the moon's slight magnetic effect being amplified by the unstable field. Geomagnetic changes may cause social collapse or vice versa. Crucially, consciousness shifts always accompany polar shifts. Thoth saw the Earth shift 5 times, with the sun rising in the east and west. This is why Lemuria sank, Atlantis rose during massive geological and conscious changes. Returning to Atlantis 26,000 years ago, humanity was in a precessional phase similar to ours after falling asleep. A piece of Atlantis sank when the consciousness shifted downward. The cometary impact and disastrous Martian Merkaba experiment resulted from fear and inattention. Tearing open the dimensional fabric caused the Great Consciousness collapse. Thoth, Ra, and Aragat felt they had to act to prepare for the greater polar shift and Atlantis' fall. Create a new consciousness grid was their plan. They flew to the Giza Plateau, then a rainforest called Kem. In the 4th dimension, they created a grid around the planet and started building it in the 3rd. The Solar Cross complex was built on Earth's male energetic axis. Thoth, a 6th dimensional being, said he built the Great Pyramid, not King Cheops, quickly, 200 years before the pole shift. Many pyramids aligned with Fibonacci and golden mean spirals from the Solar Cross. Edgar Cayce channeled that the pyramids were built around this time. Pyramids were built from the top down, which defies archaeology, but makes sense if they were built from higher dimensions. Thoth and his companions built a global network of temples and sacred sites on the new synthetic Christ consciousness grid from Giza. All used sacred geometrical principles, Fibonacci or golden mean spirals, and mathematically linked to the Solar Cross via the Great Pyramid. Thus, Machu Picchu, Stonehenge, and Zaguan were created intentionally as part of a unified consciousness plan. Many of these structures were 4th dimensional and slowly lowered in frequency to manifest physically. These interconnected sacred sites formed the wiring for this global energetic system, and the ley lines being rediscovered are geometric relations between them. This grid activated after 13,000 years of continuous energy flow. It was finished and activated, but not widely used. Thoth's emerald tablets in the Great Pyramid describe this history. These 12 alchemically transmuted tablets are immortal and contain wisdom readable at over 100 consciousness levels. Before Atlantis, a hall of records deep beneath the Great Pyramid held the pyramid's true capstone, a 5.5-inch tall, solid gold, holographic replica. One 24-square-foot section of the pyramid is missing. Thoth believes this missing piece belongs to a special airship, the Earth's Protector, located about a mile beneath the Sphinx, which Thoth dates to over 5.5 million years old, not 12,000. The world's oldest synthetic object, this disc-shaped ship is 2 city blocks wide and 3 atoms thick, 5 atoms thick, where a flower of lifelike pattern is inscribed on its top and bottom. It extends an individual's energy field by connecting to their living Merkaba and powered by consciousness, thoughts, and feelings. It is also deeply connected to Earth Spirit. This ship was designed to fit atop the Great Pyramid, creating a sacred geometrical image, the disk's circumference matching the pyramid's perimeter, symbolizing life's phi ratio. Only pure souls can use this ship. When Earth approached a precessional point of polar shift and vulnerability to invasion by other species, a pure person would find the ship, raise it, connect with Earth and Sun, and manifest a situation to repel the invaders. A takeover occurred in 1989, the year the Christ grid was activated. The Greys planned a takeover. Ascension allowed a pure Peruvian woman to find the ship, tune it to the 4th dimension, raise it, and manifest a situation where the Greys became ill and left Earth. Thoth and others returned to Chem, raised the warship, went to Atlantis, and picked up the Nodals after the Nodals predicted Atlantis' destruction due to the polar shift 13,000 years ago. Together, these beings formed a powerful Merkaba around themselves and the ship. The ship landed on top of the Great Pyramid, forming the phi ratio. Human consciousness fell as the poles shifted. Many ancient cultures described the Great Void, 3.5 days of absolute blackness, an electromagnetic null zone, after the Earth's electromagnetic fields collapsed. Advanced species would consciously navigate this void with Merkabas. Humanity lost this protection during the previous crisis and was sucked into the void, wiping its memory. Atlanteans had advanced bodies and minds that could directly shape their environment before this fall. After the fall, humanity dropped to the third dimension. Consciousness reset to near zero. The pineal gland, once eyeball-sized, now raisin-sized, atrophied, source energy breathing was forgotten, and lifespans were drastically shortened from 900 years to current levels. Humanity became like a supercomputer with a wiped operating system, advanced bodies without instructions. This is why humans are physically superior to other third-dimensional animals. After becoming hairy barbarians, survivors had to find fire again. Because Atlantis was mostly in a higher dimension than Earth, evidence is scarce. Under Merkaba protection, Nodals kept their memories. Thoth and 1/3 of the Nodals went to Bolivia, Aragot, and another third to Tibet, and Ra and the last third to Egypt, where they waited. Egyptian and Sumerian civilizations emerged 6,500 years after Atlantis' fall. Thoth, Ra, and the Ascended Masters waited in an underground city beneath the Great Pyramid for humanity to evolve enough to receive new knowledge during the falling asleep phase of the precessional cycle, point C to D on the chart. After the pole shift-induced ice age, melting ice sheets likely caused the flood of Noah. The secret Thoth-formed Tat Brotherhood, which protects sacred temples and is connected to Ascended Masters, reintroduced knowledge 6,000 years ago. The stair-step evolution in Egypt and Sumer occurred when members found receptive people, tuned their frequencies to the third dimension, and directly transmitted information. Both civilizations suddenly developed writing systems, hydraulics, water systems, etc., then slowly declined. Nodals gave Sumerians a detailed history of Earth, including precession. After this upliftment, humanity consciously slept more. The soul manifests as DNA. Chromosome changes affect consciousness. Humanity's second level has 44 plus 2 chromosomes. The first level had 42 plus 2, the third 46 plus 2, the fourth 48 plus 2, and the fifth 50 plus 2. Average height differences are 4 to 6 feet first, 5 to 7 feet second, 10 to 16 feet third, which humanity is translating to, 30 to 35 feet fourth, and 50 to 60 feet. Metatron, a 55-foot Hebrew archangel representing perfect humanity, was depicted. Abu Simbel statues show beings 60 feet for fifth level, 35 feet for fourth, etc., suggesting Egyptian kings who had 5 names, one for each consciousness level, could translate into different dimensions and guide the population. Egyptian and Sumerian spiritual systems focused on heightened consciousness through tools. Sexual energy was used with the Ankh. Egyptians would ank energy out of their back, over their head, and back into their body during orgasm, retaining a massive energy boost. Atlantis had secret schools for immortality and consciousness expansion. After being dismembered and restored, Osiris was the first Atlantean to do this. Atlantean and Egyptian religion followed this model. In Egyptian lore, Thoth introduced writing, which marked the shift from first to second level consciousness and degraded Atlantean high-dimensional memory to photographic memory, like Australian Aborigines' dreamtime. Misinterpreting the 42 plus 2 Neters, gods representing human chromosome pathways or life experiences, caused a major problem in Egypt. King Menes unified Upper and Lower Egypt and merged belief systems, creating 88 Neters and confusion. Akhenaten, the first pharaoh, that which you will become, tried to restore monotheism for 17.5 years. He abolished the pantheon and taught that God is within and accessible without priests, shown as 15 to 16 feet tall with an elongated skull, Christ consciousness traits. This angered priests and the military. He advocated non-aggression. People also resisted. Akhenaten, possibly a Christ consciousness conceived interdimensionally by A and Tia, first Lemurian immortals, with Thoth's help, Egyptologists note his sudden appearance, founded a mystery school during his brief reign. He immortalized 300 people, a remarkable feat. Following his overthrow, these immortals formed the Essene Brotherhood in Masada, Israel. Mary and Joseph were part of the Ascended Master's plan to bring Yeshua ben-Hur, later Jesus, into the world as a second-level human, achieve Christ consciousness, and imprint this ascension experience on the still-forming global grid for future humanity. This path may not exist without Yeshua. Mary and Joseph conceived interdimensionally. Jesus became an enlightened guru in the Himalayan Tibetan mountains, where Earth's Kundalini resided during his missing years. Bodhi McCoy describes the Lord's Prayer in its original Aramaic as a geometric prayer meditation with 7 segments that correspond to yoga's 7 chakras and branches. Though later discredited, Christian religion has strong similarities to Egyptian religion and likely originated there. New Testament was written around the time of the Council of Nicaea, c. 300 AD, when Roman political and religious authorities unified to rule society. Originally, Christos lax, an original sound of creation. Kara, Yara, Hara, Lara, etc. Christ and Allah were spoken orally before the Bible. The Mayas, the Atlantean priesthood, founded Mayan civilization on the Yucatan Peninsula with their knowledge and a crystal skull with memories and a calendar. In recent centuries, 13 powerful families, often mislabeled Illuminati, originally meaning enlightened ones in secret societies like Freemasonry, formed to explore church-suppressed knowledge, later infiltrated and corrupted, have controlled over 95% of global wealth, driving a culture of greed and power. Some believe these families have Martian DNA and lack love emotion. This seemingly absurd narrative explains mysteries like the Bermuda Triangle, the face on Mars, the origins of Jesus, Egyptian achievements, the rise of Greece, Pythagoras, taught by Thoth, founded schools on sacred geometry, most modern religions, humanity's sudden emergence 6,500 years ago, stair-step evolution, Atlantis, the Great Pyramid's connection to global sacred sites, Sumerian tablets, emerald tablets, Lucifer, and even aspects of Ephesiaman. It provides a framework for thoughtfully considering many unanswered questions. Our choices will shape the next chapter of human history.